Amicus Productions was a British film production company, based at Shepperton Studios, England. It was founded by American producer and screenwriter Milton Subotsky and Max Rosenberg. Films. Amicus's first two films were musicals for the teenage market, It's Trad Dad, and Just for Fun. Prior to Amicus being created, the two producers collaborated on the 1960 horror film The City of the Dead, and Amicus went on to make a series of portmanteau horror anthologies, inspired by the Ealing Studios film Dead of Night. They also made some straight thriller films, often based on a gimmicky idea. Amicus's horror and thriller films are sometimes mistaken for the output of the better-known Hammer Film Productions, to which they are similar in visual style and with which they share many stars, including Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Unlike the period Gothic Hammer films, Amicus Productions were usually set in the present day. Portmanteau horror films. Amicus's portmanteau films included Drive, Terror's House of Horrors, directed by genre stalwart Freddie Francis, Torture Garden, The House That Dripped Blood, Tales from the Crypt, Asylum, Vault of Horror, and From Beyond the Grave. These films typically feature 4 or sometimes 5 short horror stories, linked by an overarching plot featuring a narrator and those listening to his story. The casts of these films are invariably composed of name actors, each of whom play a main part in one of the stories, a small proportion of the film as a whole, along with the expected genre stars, such as Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee and Herbert Lom. Amicus also drew its actors from the classical British stage, emerging names, or former stars on the way down. Some, such as Joan Collins, were in their mid-career doldrums when they signed on with Amicus. Torture Garden, Asylum and The House That Dripped Blood were written by Robert Bloch based upon his own stories. An exception was the Waxworks segment of The House That Dripped Blood, which was scripted by Russ Jones, based on Bloch's story. Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror were based on stories from EC horror comics from the 1950s. The Beast Must Die. The Skull was also based on a Bloch story. Bloch was also the screenwriter of Amicus's thriller The Psychopath, and the adaptation of The Deadly Bees. Science fiction, espionage, drama. In the mid-1960s, Amicus also produced 2 films based on the television series Doctor Who, which had debuted on television in 1963. The films, Doctor Who and the Daleks and Daleks, Invasion Earth, 2150 AD, are the only cinema adaptations of the series, made in color at a time when the series itself was still in black and white. In these films, Peter Cushing played Doctor Who, a human scientist rather than an alien, with Who as his actual surname, ignoring the backstory of the TV series. Amicus also funded and produced films of other genres. Danger Route was a film version of Christopher Nicole's 1966 spy novel The Eliminator, directed by Seth Holt. Amicus produced a film version of Harold Pinter's play The Birthday Party, directed by William Friedkin. Margaret Drabble's adaptation of her novel The Millstone was filmed as A Touch of Love, and Lawrence Moody's novel The Ruthless Ones was filmed as What Became of Jack and Jill. Amicus Productions also produced a small number of science fiction films, with a trilogy of adaptations of several of the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs. After Amicus, Milton Subotsky relocated to Canada for a time and gamely tried to carry on the anthology tradition with such films as The Uncanny and The Monster Club. Peter Cushing came along for the former but passed on the latter, as did Christopher Lee. Subotsky secured the rights to some Stephen King properties in the 1980s and got a credit on the King anthology film Cat's Eye. His final credits, again based on King properties, would be released posthumously: Lawn Mower Man and Sometimes They Come Back Again. Subotsky died in 1996. today. In 2003, Anchor Bay Entertainment released a 5-disc DVD box set of Amicus films in a coffin-shaped container in the UK. In 2005, Amicus was revived to produce homages to the old titles as well as original horror fare. Their first production was Stuart Gordon's Stuck. Amicus Films. It's Trad Dad. Just for Fun. Dr. Tears House of Horrors. Doctor Who and the Daleks. The Skull. Daleks. Invasion Earth. 2150 AD. The Psychopath. The Deadly Bees. Torture Garden. Danger Route. They Came from Beyond Space. The Terranauts. A Touch of Love. The Mind of Mr. Soames. The House That Dripped Blood. Monster. What Became of Jack and Jill. Asylum. Tales from the Crypt. The Vault of Horror. From Beyond the Grave. And Now the Screaming Starts. Madhouse. The Beast Must Die. The Land That Time Forgot. At the Earth's Core. The People That Time Forgot.